Hello. Hello, folks who are signing on. I see people showing up on our list of folks who are attending. Okay. I'm just going to give it maybe one more minute and we're going to get started. All right. So my name is Nicole Remo. I am the Assistant Director of Programs at the National Foreign Language Center, and also the Assistant Director and Senior Project Manager for the STARTALK program. And I'm joined by my colleague, Thomas Sauer. Thomas, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
So we are here to answer your questions about the STARTALK application. I'm sure plenty of you have been working on it. This is strictly a question and answer session. So how you ask questions is to enter them in the Q&A function on this webinar. So don't enter them into the chat, but into the Q&A, and you should see a space for that. We will answer the questions as they show up out aloud. If you have a question that's a little bit more complex and harder to kind of get in written word and be easier to say, you can raise your hand. There's a little button to raise your hand, and I can click and allow you to talk, and you can ask your question aloud. If you have questions that we did not get a chance to address, you can submit your questions to this site right here, startalk.umd.edu/public/applicant questions. And we get to those right away, usually in the same day, unless we have to ask someone outside of the NFLC, particularly the government sponsor, any questions. And if you have technical issues, the online application system, Suffice, is not working properly, or some kind of function seems off, you can email our technical support team at startalk-support@nflc.umd.edu, and they are happy to help you. So you can go ahead and start asking questions right now and enter them right in there. You don't have to ask questions in this order, but you have the ability to ask questions or make comments on the content of the proposal, the STARTALK principles, best practices, the TEL domains, any of that, or any of the questions that get to the narrative portion of the proposal. And of course, you can also ask questions regarding the budget, the forms that have to be uploaded and completed, any contractual requirements, or other general questions. So those are all the types of questions that you can enter into the Q&A. One tip to keep in mind, the applicant resources page literally has everything that you need. Please visit this page. Do not submit your proposal without reviewing the documents on this page. There are narrative guides, there's an overall applicant guide, and there is a budget guide along with frequently asked questions and some templates. So please make sure that you use this resource. It is extremely valuable, and I would suggest that no one submit a proposal without having already reviewed these documents. So let's get into the questions. There's some questions here. Here's a question in the student program application. The narrative of question 14, program personnel, must ensure PD has knowledge and experience with STARTALK programs. New to the program, how does this work? Explain. Thomas, I'm going to give that one to you.
Yeah, I think that's for a new proposal that wouldn't count against you. Obviously, if you're new, you wouldn't know anything about STARTALK just yet, other than what you may gather from perusing the website. But that question also applies to returning programs. We have a lot of folks who, over the years, have gone through STARTALK programs, eventually became instructional leads and program directors, and so that's kind of that. So if you're brand new, that just ignore that part. It's just one of many criteria in that question. It's not necessarily the question, it's just one of the criteria, so it wouldn't count against you, because the reviewer would know that you write a brand new proposal, and I can also tell you that all of our proposals from brand new programs are reviewed by a separate set of reviewers, so they're aware of your circumstances.
Thank you, Thomas. Another question, on the budget support documentation, do you need any support for the indirect percentage that is assigned? Also, the budget resource guide says to include outside accounting costs in the indirect section. However, it also says that you don't need to include supporting documentation for indirect costs. Therefore, are we supposed to include support documentation to justify what the outside accounting cost estimates are? So, yes, in a way. If when you are completing the beginning of the proposal, you select that you do not have a federally negotiated indirect cost rate, and that's a special form. If you're from a university or college, you most likely have a special document from the Department of Health and Human Services or the Office of Naval Research that has a specific indirect cost rate for your university or college. And that is the document. That's all you need to upload as budget support documentation. Well, actually, there's a special place that just has indirect cost, federally negotiated indirect cost rate. If you select that no, you do not have a federally negotiated indirect cost rate, you must complete an indirect cost justification document. And that is essentially a spreadsheet that shows how you calculated your indirect costs. That is the only support documentation that is needed. You do not need additional support documentation for those specific costs. That indirect cost document must be uploaded and tagged as your indirect cost justification, and you should have that as an option of one of your uploadable documents if you have selected that you do not have a federally negotiated indirect cost rate. I hope that answered your question. Another question, the application asks about states. Does that mean states that we are targeting in our recruitment or states that our program will take place in? I know that sounds like a silly question, but I already checked national for our recruitment target, so I'm confused by this question. This is where the actual physical location of your program will be. So it's the state in which your program is going to be taking place. I know that there are some programs that have taken place in multiple states. So that's why we have it as states. But I believe that what you're referring to here is like the location of your actual program, not where your participants are from. That's a really good question. No, good point. Okay. Hold on, let me make sure that I'm. Okay. I have got a quotation for a bus trip on the phone and entered this in the budget that I cannot change now. When I asked them again for a written quotation, they sent me a different price. Is this the problem? If it's a current quotation for the bus use that you want next year, then the quote should match what you have in your budget. So if you put, I don't know, $50 or something like that, and I'm just making up that number, I have no idea how much a bus trip costs. But if you put $50, then your quote, at least for this example, should be $50 because your quote is actually saying for the year 2020, we will charge $50 or whatever for whatever. But if you're showing documentation that shows the history or the past, something like what you paid for a bus trip last year, you can also show that as documentation. So if that number doesn't match, I think that is okay. It doesn't have to match to the penny, but it should be around the same price because it should be showing more or less what you wanted to spend on the bus trip. I hope that answered your question. Okay, we don't have any payroll employees, so fringe benefit entries can be empty. Yes, that is correct. If you have no one in the personnel section of your budget, then fringe benefits should be empty. But we assume that if you put someone in the personnel section of your budget, then they are receiving fringe benefits. If you have someone who's on payroll and you put them in personnel and you're not paying fringe benefits off of grants, maybe your institution has some rule where you don't pay fringe off of grants, which happens, then you should put a 0 there. However, if the people that you've listed don't have fringe benefits and they're not on payroll, it is possible that they should be in the contractual section of your budget and not in the personnel section of your budget. Personnel is really for payroll, people who are on staff, on salary, or they're graduate assistants and they're being paid through the salary system of your institution, and therefore they usually have benefits. But if for whatever reason these people you're going to create a contract for them, a purchase order for them for one time where they're going to just teach during the summer and then they're going to go about their lives and go work wherever else they work, then they should probably be in the contractual section of your budget. Okay, I'm the only faculty in Arabic. I am taking the role of program director and instructional lead. The chair of my department will be co-directors. Is this acceptable? Yes, it is possible to have co-directors. Keep in mind that the director should be on the site of the program at all times. So your chair should be pretty much heavily involved in the program. If the chair is more serving as kind of an overhead kind of supervisor or just signing off on things, and that chair may be more like a principal investigator as opposed to a co-director. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Budget. Where would required training for camp staff be entered on the budget form? Specifically serve safe for the cook. Yes. So Lori, I know you sent me this message before, and I actually sent that message to the government and I did not get an answer on it. I would put it under contractual. If you're paying a contractor or you're paying some department at your university to do the serve safe class, then I would probably put it under contractual. It seems like that's the best place to put it in my mind. Okay, if the program is one state, how do I add the districts? I did not see any way to add 3 different districts for 3 different sites. So just put 1. It's okay. Just put 1. You're talking about the congressional districts. Just put 1. Maybe put it for whatever your headquarters is. That's fine. Okay, we are not school-based programs, so all of our staff will not come under personnel. So yeah, that is fine. You do not have to have staff under personnel. If everyone's not under personnel and then no one is being paid under the payroll of your institution, then you can put everyone under contractual. That's completely acceptable. Okay, for dates of the program, should I include the start date of the pre-program online or just the residential program? Also, for total days, should I include both the online program or just the residential program? I ask because our site visit team will want to know which day they're visiting. For example, 3rd day of the program, but if we add 10 days to online, it will be the 13th day of the program. So I'm going to answer something really quick just about dates. And then I'm going to let Thomas answer more about like how you're breaking up your program. One thing about dates is that whatever you put in the proposal, your start date has to be after June 1st. So if you have any kind of online like pre-reading or anything like that that needs to happen, that may happen before June, the core of your program or you know your start date for your program has to be after June 1st. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing is that once you get a grant, if you get a grant, you will be asked to be a bit more granular with your dates, where we'll ask you for the beginning of the online portion, the end of the online portion, the beginning of the face-to-face portion. So in other words, you'll have the ability to break out your program in sessions. So that will be another piece of that. The proposal really just gives us the ability to say like it's starting after June, and we can see kind of the length of the program in days, but the hours are completely different, and I'm going to let Thomas speak to that.
Yeah, and you need to, I'm assuming since you're asking for a residential program, that you're asking about a student program, and the online hours, they need to be included in the total hours, which I know is different from the dates. So that then depends if your online program is synchronous or asynchronous. So if everybody's on the same time, obviously you can count it as dates. If not, that might be hard to estimate if you're on the 10th day or the 13th day. So then I would just go probably with the face-to-face portion of it, but still count the hours in the overall instructional hours.
So long story short, I would say for the proposal for your date, I would put your earliest start date, because we usually say earliest start date, so that would be the beginning of the online program, as long is it's after June 1st, because again, the proposal won't allow you to put anything before June 1st. And then your latest end date would be the end of your residential program. And that will be the latest end date during the summer. So if you have any follow-on activities, the dates that you put into your proposal are just for the summer, just summer dates. Okay, so the next question on here, I know that we got through our form, and I thought that we responded to, can we use stipends for all salaries without using PERA? I do not know what PERA is, but you may use, like I was saying to the person earlier, everyone on your whole budget, as long as they're not receiving fringe and on payroll, can all go into the contractual section of your proposal. We try to discourage the use of the word stipend. You can use the word honorarium. You can use the word contract. You can use the word purchase order. You can use contract for service. You can use any of those things. Those can all go into the contractual section. You do not have to have people in the personnel section of your proposal. I mean, Thomas, do you know what PERA is? I don't know what PERA is.
I don't know.
Okay. All right, next one. Our state organization is a member of JNCL. Can we still sign the lobbyist form? So we sent a response to this to you today, I think, Lori, about the lobbyist form. We sent that question directly to NSA for an answer because we weren't sure. They told us that you should complete the lobby disclosure form just to be safe, which is on the federal website for the SF424 family of forms, and I sent you a link for that. So that was the answer that we got. So please check email because I'm pretty sure we responded to you on that. All right, next one, 2 budget questions. One, is it possible if some of the costs for the program are covered by another grant? For example, we received a grant to run a summer program but are applying for a STARTALK to expand the program to be more impactful. 2, on the sample budget, there are $0 line items that follow the guideline from the budget applicant document. I just want to double check that it's accurate, as our OSP finds that a little odd that there is $0 line item. Okay, there's a third question, but I'm just going to stop at the second question, I think. Yeah, okay. Okay, so the first question, if it's possible for some of the costs for the program to be covered by another grant. So this gets a little sticky. Participants for the STARTALK program should be covered under the STARTALK grant. Additional participants cannot be covered by the STARTALK grant. So if you have 20 students in the class, and 10 of them are being financially supported by STARTALK, and you want 10 more to be supported by another grant, that becomes very difficult to kind of delineate, and the government discourages that. However, if you have another grant or another source of funding that's covering, for example, I don't know, some type of equipment or something like that that your program may be using, or a supply that you may be sharing, that is acceptable. But I would shy against having students from different programs in the same classroom, because that becomes really sticky to try to delineate between, like, what portion of the teacher's salary goes to what and to what, and you know, I would shy away from that. Okay, so the one on the sample budget, there are $0 line items that follow the guidelines from the budget applicant document. So it is possible to have a $0 line item, particularly if you're doing something in kind and you feel like you want to express that to STARTALK. You want to let us know that, I don't know, I can't even think of anything now, but there's some kind of item that the program is covering, that your institution is covering, that the grant isn't going to pay for. So yes, it's possible to have a $0 line item. I want to say to everyone on this call, do not use that sample budget as exactly what you should put into your budget. That is not the purpose of the sample budget. The purpose of the sample budget is to show how calculations are made, and to show how to kind of lay out the things in your budget. It is not just because there is a line item on there for tuition or something doesn't mean that you have to have tuition. If there's a line item for a certain supply on there doesn't mean that you have to have that same supply. So don't look at that as a one-to-one comparison, like everything in the sample budget I must have in my budget. That is not the purpose of the sample budget. Okay, your third question is if the personnel are being covered by other grant or by institution, meaning we aren't charging STARTALK and our $0 line item, does the $0 line item for fringe still need to be included? You know, I would put that $0 line item for fringe too, you know, because if the person is on payroll at the university and they're being covered by something else, and you're you know, just showing that they have an in-kind, it's an in-kind expense or something like that, I would also put that $0 line item in fringe. It won't take you a long time to do, and it'll just make things a lot clearer for us. And then just make a note that says that this $0 line item in fringe relates directly to this one that's up above. Okay. Okay. All right. 2 of the teaching assistants that I'm planning to hire are to be determined. They may be personnel or contractual. Where should I locate them on the budget? If you're going to potentially be paying fringe for these people, then they should be in personnel. If you're pretty sure that you're not going to have to pay fringe for them, then they should be in contractual. So that really is up to you, but I think you may have to pick one of the 2. You know, since they're both TBD, you're not sure where they're going to come from, I would pick the one option that could maybe a little bit more expensive, which probably could be personnel because you have fringe. I don't know. It depends on your institution, but I would pick the one that may be a little bit more expensive. And then once you figure out who they are, you would have to submit, if you receive a grant, you would have to submit a budget modification request to the government to move that person, that line item, that TBD line item, from contractual to personnel or from personnel to contractual. And then you would have to explain what you're going to do with leftover money, or if you need to move money from somewhere else to cover it. But yeah, if you're not too sure which one's going to come through, I would just pick one of the 2 and just assume that whatever happens later, you are able to do modifications. Okay, is rent allowed in the budget? Thank you. So rent. So for larger institutions like universities and college, rent usually will fall under indirect costs. For smaller institutions, it may be, particularly if you are renting space just to do the STARTALK program, that rent is a direct cost, in which case rent is allowed on the budget for the amount of time that you are there. So yes, it is. Make sure that you have proper documentation to support or to quote where you got the dollar amount for the rent, and make sure that you're putting it in the right section of the budget. Okay, most of our teachers are also employees. Can we still contract them through a stipend through the grant? So again, I would shy away from using the term stipend, and I would check with your institution to find out if you are allowed to do something like contract with employees. Even if an employee, at least for the institutions I've been at, even if an employee has a 10-month salary, it's a special type of payment to them if they're working during the summer. So I would check with your institution. Again, you can contract with a person and offer them an honorarium or a contract or a purchase order through the STARTALK grant, no problem. But just make sure that you're following your institution's rules and how to do that. Okay, budget. Can we request budget to hire a part-time specific accountant for the grant, even though there is a person doing regular booking in our organization? Yes, you can do that. And I would say that that is a direct cost if you're hiring them specifically just for the grant. And you can certainly do that if you need the additional assistance, and you can call them an administrator or clerical assistant or something like that. Okay, if we have lots of supporting screenshots for breakfast and snacks, is it okay to add all those as supporting documents? Yes, it is. How many hours does the program need to last for, Thomas?
There's no, depends. If it's a student program for middle, high school, and university students, it's a minimum of 90 hours. If it's a student program for K through 5, it's 45 hours. If it's a teacher program, there's no minimum. So it depends on your situation.
So definitely check the online guide. I think, is it on the applicant guide or the narrative guide that has the hours?
It's on the applicant guide and
On
the
the applicant
eligibility
guide
section.
So right at the top of the applicant guide on the applicant page has information about hours. Okay, when do we have to submit the curriculum to be approved? Is it 3 weeks before the start date, Thomas?
1 week. So you'll be working with a team leader in the spring once your grant gets approved and funding is in place, and you'll be working probably over a period of a month, 6 weeks, depending when your program starts, and it will have to be submitted 1 week before the program starts.
Yeah, and it has to be approved 1 week before the program starts. It's not being submitted to be approved, but it actually has to be approved by a week before, 7 days before. Yeah. Does laptop, printer come under equipment or supplies? If I understood correctly, in the last one was sure that $5,000 should go under $5,000 should go under supplies. I would put a laptop or a small printer, like an inkjet printer or something like that. I would put that under supplies. I would not put that under equipment. Okay, for TEL domain criteria, it says select the STARTALK principle that will become the major focus of your program. Identify up to 2 TEL criteria from the planning domain and up to 2 additional TEL criteria that support the principle you selected. Why do you break up TEL into planning and additional? Are you expecting at least 1 planning criteria and at least 1 other criteria?
That's correct, yes. We're expecting at least 1 from the planning, and then you can choose any other ones that support or align with those. If you look at the domains and you look at the criteria, you'll see there's lots of alignment among the domains, and so you might find other ones, depending on what kind of program you are, that would also support the goals of your program. For example, everything that's in planning also shows up in the learning experience when students are actually implementing it, or teachers actually implementing it.
What if the number of students does not come out to be what we projected? If the number of students doesn't come out to be what you projected, just let us know as you're, if you have a grant later on, as you're doing your recruitment, you realize you're not going to reach your levels, just let us know. If it's close, I mean, it's really not a big deal, but if it's far under, we'll probably want to work with you to see if we can find some strategies to help you improve those enrollment numbers. Will you post this video to be reviewed? Yes, indeed, we will. It will be posted online on the applicant guide page toward the bottom. Do I need to include a price quotation for contractually instructor fees? Yes, you have to include a price quotation for everything. If you look on the applicant resources page under the budget section, under the budget guide section, there is a human resource cover sheet that must be included and precede every quotation for an individual who is being contracted or paid through payroll for the grant. And that cover sheet allows you to select several different options from several different options of what kind of backup documentation you are including for that particular instructor or group of instructors, maybe TBD or something like that. So please review that information because that'll be super helpful. But yes, you do have to have a quotation for literally everything. And there are some suggestions on what kinds of things you can use to back up personnel costs and contractor costs for individuals. Oh, thank you, John. PARA is one of the Colorado retirement plans for government employees, including teachers. I think it's only Colorado. So if you pay a STARTALK instructor on a contractual basis, you have to pay retirement benefits, so it's tricky. Just FYI, it wasn't me who asked me. Okay. So yeah, yeah, if it's a retirement benefit, then I would say that that's kind of fringe. But I mean, you're saying that it wasn't people who are on para, so yeah. Okay. Okay. Is busing students allowable? We have 25 students who live in a city 161 miles from our residential camp. We need to have 2 round trips, beginning of camp and end of camp. Oh, this is one question I always have a hard time remembering what the rule is. Let me get back to you, Lori. Can you send that to us in an email, to the email at the bottom, or the form at the bottom, and I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. If we create our own materials, will this be counted against us? What if we cannot find books related to the theme and level of proficiency, and we use them? If we use some of the books and technology that are already part of the school, do we need to add them somewhere? So we actually encourage you creating your own materials, and we work with you, and we have a lot of materials that are online that are free of use. Thomas, do you want to speak a little bit more to this?
I think you answered it, yeah. We do have a lot of resources, both authentic materials and strategies. And given the short nature of most programs, we actually, not against the rules, but we don't expect people to use traditional textbooks or things like that in their program.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if you are using books and technology that are already part of the school, then no, you don't need to add them anywhere. I guess if you're saying budgetarily, you do not need to add them anywhere. But I mean, if you're using specific materials that are critical to your program, they should be described somewhere in the narrative, I'm guessing. Okay. Can you tell me which section of the budget rent should be placed? So if rent is a direct cost, I would put rent under contractual. How can you train staff if your student program begins on June 1st? Because of the site, we are restricted to June 1st. So you can certainly train staff before June 1st. You just can't have students in the program before June 1st. So you will have your grant hopefully sometime in April, and you can do any kind of instructor training or anything like that before that June 1st date, but the actual students being in the program cannot begin before June 1st. I hope that helped. Okay, if we have a student program for 60 hours, can we apply for a $90,000 grant? Yes. The $90,000 is not directly correlated with the number of hours. There are a lot of different factors, and we understand that depending upon where you are and what your institution is, and a whole lot of different factors that kind of govern how you come up with your bottom line of your budget. So it is not directly correlated at all with the number of hours your program has for the participants. Okay, 2 of the administrative coordinators are personnel and will not be actually paid, as they are paid 100% by our university. ORSP is including fees for 10% of their time. Will the university pay 90% of their salary and the 10% will be paid by STARTALK? Is this the usual way of the calculation? It is up to your institution how you're going to calculate the salary for what salary percentage or hours or whatever will be charged to the STARTALK grant. That is entirely up to your institution. As long as you describe that calculation on your budget and you give us a clear description, then we should be okay with that, and you have that budget support documentation. So that really is up to you. When will we know if the grant is approved? I'm going to go to my next slide. It's a great time to share this slide. The online application process opened on September 12th. The proposal deadline is October 24th, next week. We do complete a triple blind proposal review. We will notify you of your status by February of 2020. So there's the answer to your question. And grant awards will be released by April 2020. Okay. Do you want a cover sheet for non-staff? I sure do. I want a cover sheet for any human being that you are going to be paying to do work. So if that is a contractor or a staff member, you still need to have a cover sheet. You do not need to have a cover sheet for things that are not people. I just need the shopping cart screenshot from Amazon for the supplies that you want to buy, or I need an invoice last year from the bus company that took the kids to the field trip, or whatever it is. But for people, there has to be a cover sheet on top of every single person or group of people that are represented by a single line item on your budget. So somebody asked if we needed a cover sheet for non-staff. Okay, if we are doing a residential camp and our institution does not allow us to use personal cars to transport students, is it allowable to put the cost of a rental car for the entirety of the program on the grant? Yes, you can put it in the contractual section, absolutely. That's a good question. 4 of my staff are TBD at the moment. The Suffice system is not allowing me to duplicate TBD. I create TBD1, TBD2, TBD3, TBD4. But still the system says that I should use surnames. What should I do? That is a technical question. So at the bottom of my screen here, email that question to startalk-support@nflc.umd.edu, and they should be able to help you out with that. Can we do lodging and meals for staff for professional development at our site prior to June 1st? Also pay our consultant? Yes, you can do that. You can do things before June 1st as long as you have your countersigned grant in hand, which hopefully will be towards the end of April. You can spend money before June 1st in preparation for your summer program. It's just that you cannot host participants until after June 1st. Another question, if we choose to run our theme in 2 different sites, we need 2 program directors, correct? Given that the 2 sites will run the same theme, can we only assign 1 lead instructor? Yes, it is possible to have 1 lead instructor. Thomas, do you have any comments on this one? You may have some insights.
I was going to say the other way around. You just need 1 program director, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have an instructional lead at every site, because one of their roles is to provide feedback to your instructors. And then the other thing you might want to consider, a lot of programs do, is have a site coordinator or somebody who can take some of the program director responsibilities on. But of course, you could also have 2 program directors. So either one works. If you only have 1 instructional lead, you just want to make sure that you can figure out who does fulfill the duties of the instructional lead.
Okay. Okay. I included fees for STARTALK external trainer who I do not know yet. How do I include a cover sheet or price quote? So what you can do is, if you've come up with a dollar amount that you're going to pay this person, I'm hoping that you have some kind of documentation for someone else that you've paid to do similar work, to do training of some sort. I don't know if this is professional development training for your instructional staff or what, but if you can find some kind of documentation that shows that this is what we usually pay external trainers to do professional development at our institution. In other words, you could use Bob Smith's, who was an external trainer for the math department summer program or something like that, and you could show a copy of that person's purchase order or contract or the acceptance letter or something like that for that particular person. So there are some ways that you can still provide that price quote. So you do need to have that cover sheet, and that's the kind of quote that you can have. Or if your institution has any kind of publicly available pricing for consultants, then you can show a copy of that website of publicly available pricing for that consultant and show that we are following this particular institutional set of pricing for this instructor or this trainer. Okay, If we put something under the wrong budget category, will this be something that will disqualify our application, or will there be a chance to fix the budget should the program get funded? For example, I would have assumed the rental car for the program would be under travel and not contractual. Yeah, the rental car for the program could go under travel or contractual, honestly, and that's not the type of thing that we would make you move from one place to another. We'll make you move things like putting meals under other or tuition, or we'll make you move something like putting fringe under personnel or personnel under contractual. And yes, we will not disqualify you for putting something in the wrong category. We'll contact you and ask you to change it and fix it. You'll have time to fix it. Okay, with 3 sites, can we have 3 teacher lead administrators for 3 sites to help with some of the responsibilities that the lead instructor has? Yes, yes, you can. Absolutely. Is there guidance for the percentage of the budget that is used for staff? For example, it's suggested that no more than X% of your budget go towards staff instructor salaries and fees. No, we don't have an answer for that, unfortunately. So no, there is not a suggested percentage. Do we need an offer letter for accountant or technical assistant, or just pricing from a public website would be enough? Pricing from a public website would certainly be enough. Just make sure that on your cover sheet for those individuals, you're explaining where on the public website you are getting that pricing from. So if you're sending like a big table that's on a public website and that person's getting paid category whatever from this column, from this row, make sure that you're explaining that this is the row and this is the column and this is the exact pay and this is why we're using this pay on that cover sheet. So if we're going to run the same theme in 2 sites, can we only provide the program director and instructional lead in the proposal and provide the coordinators later, or we have to assign the coordinators and provide the information in the proposal? The 2 people that must be named in the proposal are the program director and instructional lead. Everyone else can be TBD. But the thing that you need to make sure that you explain in the personnel section of your narrative is the qualifications and role or duty of the TBD people that you have listed in your budget. We have an HR cover sheet. We'll have an HR cover sheet for the documentation. Will an email agreement suffice, or must it be an offer letter? Yeah, the government doesn't like emails to use as an offer letter. There is an example of a little offer letter that's in there. I can't remember what page it's on, but take a look in there and see if you can do something similar to that, where you're saying what the start date is, what the end date is, what the amount is, how much you're expecting this person to work. It's signed by somebody who's offering, and then there's a space for the other person to accept or sign to say that, yes, well, I accept. And then that way you've got better documentation. If I mention names of instructors now and they do not commit to the program, can I change the names later? Absolutely, yes, you can. If you change the program director or lead instructor, you would have to complete a proposal change request, but if you're just changing anyone else on the budget, you can just change them. You don't even have to let us know. Can we do professional development with teachers before June 1st? Does it have to be a week long? So again, you can do any kind of work on the grant before June 1st, and it can still be reimbursed by the grant as long as you have your countersigned grant document in hand, which you should have sometime in April. So yes, you can do professional development with teachers before June 1st. There's nothing that says that it has to be a week long. We don't have any guidance on how many days or anything, do we, Thomas, for PD?
We don't, no.
So that's up to you.
But we do want you to encourage you to think if it's truly professional development or if it's set up. Often people plan 2 days for professional development and realize they need 2 days to set up their site and then end up doing no professional development. So really think about how much time you're spending for a training versus setting up a camp or setting up a program.
Exactly. Do I have to have a coordinator? No, you do not have to have a coordinator. However, I would keep in mind that running and administering a STARTALK program during the summer is intensive and it is a lot of work. And we definitely suggest, particularly for new programs, but really for any program, to make sure that they have the administrative support to be able to pull off the program without major stress on their lives. It's a lot of work, so you may want to consider having some kind of administrative person there to assist with the copying and the calling and the, you know, extra stuff that needs to be done. Okay, does anyone have any additional questions? I don't see anybody's hands up. Okay, here's one. We can add hours for professional development and program director, instructional lead, and instructors, etc. I'm not sure I understand that question. Can you clarify, please, Sadia? Does anyone need to speak to ask a question? I don't see anybody's hands up, so I'm guessing no. If a person wants to volunteer, how do we add it to the budget? Oh, there's one. So if a person wants to volunteer, you can just put them in at $0. I think it's nice to show in the budget that someone's volunteering their time. So you can put them, if it's a staff member, you can put them under contractual, or put them under personnel, excuse me, and just put $0 and explain in the description that that person is volunteering their time. Let me just, Sadia, I'm going to allow you to talk, okay? So hold on for a moment. Okay, Sadia, you can go ahead and ask your question. Yes, I can.
Yeah, hi, Nicole.
Hello.
Yeah, so my question was like regarding that professional development hours. So can we add like top of those 90 hours, we are like planning to 1 hour training for instructors and for the teaching assistants. And before that, the curriculum development for the project director and the instructor lead. So we can add those hours on top of those 90 hours.
No, if you're a student program, the hours only count for your students. Any training you don't account for in those instructional hours.
Okay, so we should not charge those hours which goes towards either giving training to teachers or in the preparation of the curriculum development.
You can pay your teachers, you can do all kinds, but it just doesn't count as instructional hours.
Right. No, I mean, no, not the instructor hours, but we can charge, we can add them in our budget.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Sorry, let me just put that there. Okay. If we run multiple sites, can we assign only coordinators in the site, correct? We can assign only coordinators in a site, right? We don't need to find a program director to be on the site. So we do require that a program director be on site. We understand that there are some places that have multiple sites where the program director is visiting each site during the day, each day. So it is possible to do that, but you may want to consider having a co-program director on some of these if you have multiple sites, or at least maybe some kind of lead administrator or something like that who can be there. I think Thomas had suggested that earlier, who can be there, and that the director can be available to travel and visit the sites frequently if need be. Thomas, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, I think you got it.
Okay. What if other expenses come up during the program? How do we go about that? So if other expenses come up during the program and you have the money, you can write to the government and ask them to modify your budget to add those expenses, or to move expenses from one line item to another in order to cover a new expense that may have occurred. We have plenty of that happening, and it's totally allowed, but keep in mind that you may not exceed the amount that your grant is approved for. So if your grant is approved for $83,125, you may not spend and be reimbursed for $83,126. That extra dollar is not reimbursable, no matter what it's spent on. Okay, how do we calculate any honorarium or contract if we do not have anything set up at my university? Can honorariums or contracts be different for different people based on their expertise? That is entirely up to your organization. So you will have to contact folks at your organization and find out what people are getting paid for what kind of background. If you don't have anything set up at your university, try contacting other departments or other people within your department who have paid contracts for different things, and ask them, you know, like what kind of amounts are they paying. If you don't have the backup documentation for that, then you can use an offer letter that is offered to an individual, and the individual has responded and said that they accept. But you will have to find some way to back up whatever amount that you've put down. So I know that can be a little bit of a challenge, particularly if you are a new program and you haven't done this before, but you're going to have to find some way to show documentation for that. Okay, for residential programs, does the program director need to stay on campus overnight? Will the live-in TA instructors be enough? The live-in TA instructors are enough, yeah. I mean, if you're having instructional activities during the evening, the program director should probably be there, you know, during some of that time, but I don't know, they don't need to be there overnight or anything. Do both directors have to be on the sites for the whole program? So there should be a director on site every day during the summer portion of your program where participants are there. I hope that answers the question. Can one director just be there for the training? I'm not sure what you mean by training. I don't know if you mean professional development for your instructors before the program, but there has to be a director on site throughout your program. So I don't think that one can be there just for the training, if that's what you meant by training. Can we hire an administrator from the university to work a couple of hours after hours if she agrees to do so? Will she be contractual or still personnel? Will she need to be paid fringe benefits also? That is up to your institution. So if it depends on what your institution does. If your institution pays overtime or what it's going to be, you know, that all depends on your institution. The STARTALK budget form will allow you to put people in the contractual or personnel portion. Now, whether or not they should be in which section really depends on your institution and the rules and regulations of your institution. So you have to figure that out at home. Do I list all 18 teachers individually? If you have, are these 18 teachers your instructors or your participants? Are you applying for a combination or a practicum program? I'm not sure I understand your question. We'll have to get back to that. Okay, we have a director and a co-director. How do we specify roles? Can roles overlap? Yes, roles can overlap. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So we're almost at the end of our time. And I do want to just remind everyone that they can submit questions online and contact technical support. Another thing that I want to share with everyone and make sure that they have, I'm just going to pull it up really quick, is to also keep in mind that the applicant support page is extremely helpful. And there we go. The applicant resources page is extremely helpful for you. Review the applicant guide document. Here it says view guide. make sure you review this document first. Make sure that you review the narrative guide that accompanies the program type that you selected, student, one of the 3 teacher programs, or the practicum program for teachers. And everyone should review the budget guide. That human resource cover sheet is right here. You can take a look at that. Also, the budget support cover sheet, we have a cover sheet that will help you to be kind of the table of contents for your budget support documentation. And then frequently asked questions are all down here, categorized. The webinar will be posted right here, so you can already look at our webinar from 10/7, and this webinar will be posted here for a video. Here's where you can submit your applicant questions and submit any SOFI questions via email. All right, so I do have that. Okay, I have an answer for you here. We have 18 instructors for 315 students. Do we have to list them separately? If you know the names of those instructors, yeah, I would go ahead and list them. Why not? But if you do not know the names of your instructors yet, and you just know that you're going to have these 18 instructors, you can list them on one line and just say 18 instructors, and that's it. Okay. All right, that's about it, and we're about out of time. Again, if anyone has any questions, please, please, please make sure that you go ahead and submit a question to us or contact technical support. Again, we'll be posting all of this online in the next few days. Thank you so, so very much for being here with us today. And we hope that you have a wonderful afternoon, and we wish you the very best with your submitted proposals. Take care.